I've shared before on previous real side experiences the presence of a particular expression of a body type, that being what I broadly categorize as the mutants. This body form expression can take various forms, but ultimately has the same created consciousness, that of the decided ability and inclination to assimilate all other body forms and species the mutants can get their hands on, and somewhat absorb them into their own kind. Sometimes the form will be that of a large organism-like creature, a little like the blob from Steve McQueen's movie, and seemingly in such a form can it just as readily operate in space as it can on the surface of planets. Such a creature, if it can make a physical contact with another being or body type, will absorb the target into itself, and the being that was the body type becomes a part of the organism, which isn't in fact the destruction of it. Instead, the consciousness of the absorbed being becomes as a part of the consciousness of the overall organism, a kind of collective consciousness, but one where effectively the same body form, the blob-like organism, is shared by all. As I said, the assimilating mutant body type has various forms, for as much as it can comprise of these ever-growing in size single organisms, so have I and others been shown a growing population of mutants, that although operate as individual units, still boast the same consciousness design, that of the inclination and ability to increase their number by assimilating other body forms through a physical contact. The only difference being, as I said, the body types absorbed don't become as a single body overall form, but are mutated also, that only a vague semblance of the species they once were can be discerned, and so these mutants operate as individuals, but are as one collective consciousness also, the drive to increase their number far more reminiscent than of the Borg in Star Trek, with an overall consciousness becoming very overladen with a distortion of ideas of control, restriction, as the overall consciousness affects the simulated creational realms, so the simulator will reflect the degree of compaction of ideas of a consciousness distortion, and this will give rise to an overall simulator that is not only very dark due to the unconsciousness, but dark in the sense of the body types it contains, and it should be expected that a simulator in its final consciousness distorted yuga phase will be teeming with expressions of a body type that reflect such a degree of distortion, and an expression, a symptom of the overall compacted, distorted consciousness, does seem to be this ever-growing quantity of mutants and organism-like body forms with their assimilating and increasing of their number or mass objective, and I am occasionally shown glimpses of the activities of this expression of body form. In this real side experience, it was as though a group and myself had tried to once again engage with the mutants. For it must be remembered that despite the body form, despite the consciousness that effects it, all this is created, and underlying it all is a real awareness that generally is forgotten and disregarded, but that will have the same fundamental drive as all real awareness, to recognize the isness it is a part of, and to accept that realization. So the drive to recognize the is goes in hand with the drive to assist others to do likewise, as we are all in the same life. We all are life, this everything isness. We just have to decide to recognize and step into the reality of what we actually are, and recognizing also that other body forms are in reality expressions of ourselves, therefore animated by the same isness source. So by assisting others to become more aware, we are assisting overall the isness everything, just as readily as we would by cultivating our own awareness. For as real awareness recognizes the is it is a part of, so this becomes a greater recognition the is has of itself. The mutants occupy seemingly a particular portion of this assimilated realm. They have spread out throughout creation, deploying their number to all regions and areas, to convert all species they can, but do stem from a certain position, serving as their home base, so to speak. Unlike the single organisms, the mutants have a kind of royalty, and it is through the royals that the overall collective consciousness, hive mind, is maintained. My group and I then were entering the very heart of the mutant empire, their home position, and visually it seemed an area of complete chaos. For body forms are the product of their environments, a distorted consciousness that effects for oneself a body form such as mutants, likewise will effect an equally as distorted position in creation, and although this creational position wasn't the lower astral, the usual location for the most twisted and depraved beings, it was, as I said, a kind of a chaos dimension. It was as though everything was in flux, everything was fluid. There was little by which my personal self could make sense of. That which was comparable to references and features from Earth, in other words. But it seemed that for all the species being assimilated into the mutant collective, so features and aspects of the society and world of the species they had been would be present briefly, then as though vanish, amidst what the mutant realm overall comprised of, a kind of a black, putrid slime. As I said, many features that momentarily emerged from the slime would be unrecognizable by my personal self, due to being that which were a part of the worlds of other species. But now and again would I see a more earth-like object, such as a tree, or the top of a building, clearly of earthly design and architecture, etc. The group and I were very direct in our approach, effectively marching through the front door, as it were. We had a destination in mind, and wanted to make ourselves apparent to all mutants lurking in this slime realm of darkness, as though our presence was as an opportunity for all, for any mutant that chose to engage with us, so we naturally would afford them references that pertain to the ears, the guides, etc. The problem is, with a collective hive mind, is that as such, there is no individual thought processing taking place, no individual intent or decision making. It is all dictated by the overall hive mind. In the case of the individualized mutants, the hive mind overall drive and inclination as orchestrated by the mutant royalty. It is effectively a usurping of one's own thought-generating body-vehicle mechanics by the collective, and unfortunately, as the personal self must decide and free will set its intent with the ears as a generated idea, if the individual has found themselves part of such a collective situation, unless that collective harbours the same personal self-intent with the ears, the individual never will be able to. The personal self is effectively locked down, and unless the awareness leaves such a collective hive mind body form, then the likelihood of deciding a process of awareness and its recognition is non-existent, unless, as I said, the overall collective decides along such lines. This is a rather similar idea to the impending human experience of robotization, where the thought and intent generating mechanics are locked down and dictated by the controllers. For this very reason, to ensure there is not even a hint of consideration of recognizing the real awareness and the ears. But despite this, how many movies do we see of robots breaking their programming, so to speak, stepping beyond the parameters of their control, which could symbolically represent a stepping aside from consciousness, a real awareness connection then, regardless of the design of a consciousness or the extent of the dark forces' control of the body-vehicle idea-creating mechanics. So anything's possible, and even those becoming as a mutant, as a part of a hive mind. Beneath it all is the real awareness that could conceivably still find a way through to its locked-down personal self-creation. Hence why we were being very apparent, but not especially well received, as all the mutants throughout the dark slime realm we ventured through would be inclined to attack and attempt our assimilation. But as is always the case in cause and effect creation, you can't have the effect without the cause. You can't have the simulation, the experience, regardless of what it is and in relation to others, without the files, the idea agreements installed in a consciousness to generate it. The process of awareness is a gradual releasing of all idea agreements, that we can walk through creation's multi-dimensions unmolested, somewhat untouchable, as no ideas do we hold to that allow the simulation of successful attacks or harm by others upon ourselves, though they will try, if this is their intent and consciousness inclination. How can any computer game character bestow harm on another if within the other's programmed files there lacks any files that allow that this be so? As an analogy, without the files, the data, the ideas, there can not be the simulation. This includes all simulated attacks in whatever forms they may take. And so, the group and I simply marched through the frustrated mutants. Very often NuFriends are deployed into certain situations, only where their agreement ideas yet to be released will not compromise them or their objective. In this case, we harboured no idea agreements that would allow that we be harmed or indeed assimilated. There was therefore no need to retaliate or defend ourselves. We were beyond the ability of the mutants to assimilate. We simply walked through them. As I said, we had a particular destination, and although not revealed, the sense was that we were attempting to approach the heart of the mutant realm. Perhaps the mutant royalty resided there. For to have the royalty decide to, say, become more aware, as the mutants operated as a hive mind, as dictated by the royalty, so this would become the inclination then of the whole mutant collective, etc. We were ascending now a series of stone steps, with all the various mutants still hurling themselves at us from every direction. Only now we were holding what seemed to be staffs of a gleaming gold. My impression was this was intended as a kind of gesture, as though whatever it was that we were approaching in the heart of the mutant empire would be more assuaged with us displaying such. But it seemed we never would reach our destination. Something went amiss. With every real side experience we have, with every realm or dimension or creational position we delve into, everything simulated as every environment will be, is effected from ideas. Ideas that can as readily be taken on and consciousness incorporated as any other, and then we are the effects of what we have agreed with. It pays then to always be objective and indifferent to the simulated scenes we enter, and the situations and individuals we become involved with. For very easy is it to incorporate certain ideas on the real side as we walk through all the phenomena, a little like accumulating dirt on our boots. Occasionally then, if ideas that are generating that which we are involving ourselves with, whatever they might be, get taken on, and we don't recognize we have done so, so we can be debilitated consequently. On this occasion, as we neared the mutant heart of the slime realm, as we ascended the stone steps, it was as though the group and I did take on certain ideas of the dark environment, and although not identified as to their precise nature, we all recognized the effect they were presenting as. It was the equivalent of clogging up a car with bad fuel, and the group and I realized that our simulated vehicles being utilized for this mutant engaging endeavor had been slowed down, made less, through the effects of the ideas taken on. This made us momentarily more vulnerable. Not that we could be assimilated, but that our body forms now were less capable, and we needed full capability for our final confrontation with whatever was at the heart of the mutant slime realm. The real awareness can have its simulated vehicles untouchable and invulnerable, but it also depends on the cooperation of the personal self. If the personal self harbors agreements or takes on idea agreements which present as limitation, so then the real awareness is unable to have its created self fully indomitable. Not really an issue, as all ideas are taken on, even inadvertently, can be addressed and released, sometimes instantly, depending on the personal self. But here, in the mutant slime realm, it was as though the restricting and limiting ideas the group and I had taken on, we were unable to let go of until we left the mutant realm. Perhaps something to be addressed and looked at later as to the nature of these ideas and why we were effectively tainted by the dark environment we were in, but for now we had to retreat. All the mutants who were trying to assimilate us now seemed absent from the scene, and the group and I somewhat limped down the stone steps, the body forms incapacitated to a degree as a reflection of the restricting idea taint taken on. Then we proceeded across a long stone bridge that represented our exit point, and there the experience would end. As I said, an attempted engaging with the mutants within their dark creational realm, with the objective to reach the central area of it which housed something, some central expression of mutant control or royalty, but it was as though there was a kind of defense system built in, if deliberate or not, basically ideas that somehow wormed their way in, became nestled and incapacitated our body forms, to the extent that we would not be able to engage effectively with whatever lurked at the heart of the mutant empire. But very likely we will dust ourselves off, address the nature of the idea taint that afflicted us, and try again at a later moment.